So now we need to work on the redirect part. We need to redirect the user to the actual link, the long URL, when they try to visit a shortened one. So I've been thinking of a couple of ways in which we can do that. We can use a cloud function, like we can create a cloud function which is triggered on the HTTPS request, and we can extract the shortcode that the user is trying to visit. We can query through the database using the admin SDK on the cloud function. We can get the document, we can even increment the total clicks, and we can redirect the user to that long URL. So that's one way to do it, but the downside is that if we follow that approach, we may have to configure the server in order to have a custom path for that cloud function, and I'm not sure whether that's possible. Even if it is, we may have to do a bit of extra work. So I'm kind of thinking to skip that up, and just to keep things simple, we will be using the redirection on the client side. So for that, we do need to have a route in our application which takes care of the entire thing. So let's do that. Now within the app component in our project, we will be adding in a route, as that's where we have the router and the different routes. So we will be adding one more at the very end, and the path that we need to target is going to be /:shortcode. So by adding in the colon and the text as such, it means that this would be a dynamic param, and we will be extracting it within the component, and we're going to redirect the user to the long URL based upon the shortcode that they are trying to visit. So within this thing, we need to place in the component. So let's first create one. Within the components directory, we need to create a new directory with the name of link redirect and index.js for the component. Let's create a barebone structure by using the RAFCE prefix because I have installed the extension, and let's name the component as link redirect. Now the first thing that we need to do is we need to get the shortcode, because before we can even make the request. So in order to get the param, which is the shortcode, we will be using a hook from React router DOM package, and the name of the hook is use params. So when this hook will be executed, it's going to give us an object containing all the params in the URL that the user is currently on. So over here we can name it as params, and it's going to be an object, and for the time being, let's display this object by using the stringify on the JSON as such. Let's add in params, second argument to be null and the third one to be 2 for the spacing. So now within the app component, we just need to place the link redirect component in between the opening and the closing tag. If we do that, and if we head back to the project, as you can see that even though we are on the account page, we are kind of still seeing the content of the component that we have just added, which kind of makes sense because this route, like the path that we have added, it matches to this one as well, but we only want to display a single route instead of displaying all which match the user's URL. And in order to ensure that, we will be importing one more component from the React router DOM package, and it's the switch component. So using this, like, we just need to wrap all the routes inside of it, and it will make sure that only one route is displayed at a given time. So if we do that, and on the account page, the account path, we are only seeing the account component. That's good. So let's just try to get to the short URL in such a way. If we do that, we should be seeing the json.stringify where we have the param, which is shortcode, this thing, and the value is this, the shortcode that the user is trying to visit. So that's great, which means that we we do have everything that we need in order to make the redirect request. But first we need to get the document from the database. So we will be querying the links collection, the root level within which we have the links. And the good thing is that the document ID is actually the shortcode. So it's going to be pretty simple to make the request. So within the link redirect component, we want to make the request as soon as the user lands on this page. And for that, we will be using the use effect hook from React. Let's do that. Use effect. Over here, we will be passing in a function as the first argument and an empty array as the second argument. And over here, as we know that this thing cannot be asynchronous, we will be creating a function which we can name as fetch link doc, something like this. Let's add in the async, and over here making sure that we kind of call this function right away. So over here we need to get the link document. So let's add in link doc. We need to await the request as it would be an asynchronous request, and we also need to have the Firestore package. So let's import that thing as such. So on this we need to tap inside the links collection, the doc for which we already have the document ID. So well, actually we can destructure the param by doing it in such a way as this returns back the object out of which we can get the shortcode, and that's the document ID, and we need to call the get method as such. So the link doc will return back the document reference as it should be stated over here. Reads the document referred by this document reference. That's great. So on this, wait a second, on this link doc we will be having the data method which will give us the actual data of the document. So let's call that as well in such a way. And now if we take a look in the console, yep, we actually removed the param, doesn't matter. Let's change it to be link redirect for the time being. And now if we take a look in the console, we actually have the object for the document of the shortcode that the user is trying to visit. So that is great. We have everything that we need. So now what we need to do is, well, actually there's one more thing, that on the link doc, the document reference, if we just log it to the console instead of calling the method, we will see that it's an object on which we have an exists property. So this thing will be false if the document doesn't exist, which means that if the user is trying to visit a link which is not valid, or the owner may have deleted the link, so we have to take that thing under account. So what we can do is, over here we can check that if link doc exists, only then we want to redirect the user, because only then we will be having the long URL. So for that, over here we need to destructure this property, the long URL, when we call the link doc, the data method on it, and we can redirect the user by using the windows dot location, well, once again window dot location dot href, and we need to specify the URL which we do have over here. So let's set it to be as such, and I think that should work. Let's test it out. Yep, we have been redirected, so that is great. That's exactly what we want, as you can see. So that's working. Second, all right. So, 1 second. If we visit this link, as you can see, we saw that link redirect this text for a split seconds, and the reason is pretty much the same, for which we kind of addressed it in the app component where we added this initial load. So the thing is that when the user visits, or to say when the user lands on this component, before we even make the request, they will be seeing this text. So we need to kind of take care of this thing. We don't want to show this such sort of message. Instead, we can show a loader. So let's do that. Second, over here we will be importing the circular progress from the material UI library. So let's import circular progress as well as box and typography. So over here what we need to do is we do need to have a state as well. So let's import the use state from React, and we can name the state as loading and the function to be set loading, and by default we want it to be true, because obviously the first time this component is rendered we will be making the request, so it has to be true. And we can check that if loading is true in such a way, we want to show a box component with a circular progress as such, and we can add some margin to the top of about 10. So if now we take a look, if we visit this link, we just refresh. If we visit this link, we should be seeing the loader, and we have two loaders, which means that the first one would be for the application and the other one would be for that page. So I think, wait a second,